gewoon niet zozeer. We zijn heel veel op stadion geweest, zoals latere jaren. Dus een beetje identiek. Voelt je echt goed, hè? Ah, goed, ja. Je kwam daar net de lage tegen, hè? Weet je?
Peter Sagan!
Dames en heren, we gaan weer achter. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rustig aan allemaal. Goede weg. Goede kans.
Okay. And I can tell you that the final kilometre's all uphill, a little bit windy, a little bit technical as well. So it comes down to a big group at the end, which, in all fairness, we don't normally get in this race. But if it does, it will be a little harder than your bog standard bunch finish. There's graphical confirmation of the 12 riders we have out there in the break on the screen. Gap of 3 minutes and 7. Forming what we call the morning break, and you can bet your life that a lot of the teams who want big things, we're talking the likes of Ethics Quickstep with their superstar squad, maybe even the world champion and Tinkoff riding here.
Ik zie jij!
Il est là, il est là.
Allez Alexis! Allez Alex! Allez Peter! Il était tout juste tout devant Peter. Ils ont l'air tranquille là. Hein, Godin est tranquille aussi. Tranquillos, Stepstra, il rigole. Allez Alexis, allez! Godin. Gaius, Godin.
Group, but the Teyenberg is Tom Bonen's favourite climb to test himself and attack, and I know that many will say it's not spring until Tom Bonen has burst up the Teyenberg, attacking out of everywhere else. I'll tell you that there was a road map sellotaped onto the stem of every Ethics Quickstep rider today. Just next to the handlebars, the Teyenberg was the only obstacle highlighted in yellow, so expect something from the Belgian team there. But so predictable is a Bonen attack on the Teyenberg. Every other team will be watching. It'll be that fight to get on inside the top 10, 15 riders that will be so important and is a real feature of these races here in Flanders. There's Alexis Goujard in the break at the front. This is his teammate Nico Denz, neo-pro German, drafted in at the last minute to ride this race. It's the only brief moment of calm, really, that anybody can have towards the back of the peloton. Most of that time in this race has come and gone, and the last 80 kilometers is where we're going to see all the action. And some of you will be sitting at home, the fire's on, the armchair, the Belgian beer and the frites out, and a bit disappointed that it's not cold, wet, windy. I can tell you it's cold and windy, but a lot of you love watching this, seeing the riders really, really suffering out there. It's going to be hard enough as it is today, and I think the fact that it isn't raining will give maybe an extra percentage or two chance for some of the fast men to get a little further on in this race. A lot of contenders, though, big contenders. Let's have a quick look at the favourites. Well, Alexander Kristoff, 6 wins already this year. The only 5-star favourite, according to the Belgian press. Greg van Avermaet, who's had a lot of second places. Sounds like a bit of a stuck record sometime, because it can be often how his career goes throughout the spring, but he's always up there. Give himself a chance. Remember, almost won the Tour of Flanders last year. For giving himself a chance. Second to Alexander Kristoff there. Nicky Terpstra, the Dutch champion as well. Thysse Benoot, young man who's just 21 years of age, looking to really make a name for himself despite his excellent results last year as a neo-pro. Stijn van den Berg got a win for Ethics Quickstep at the Tour of Valencia. He's part of a big team, and I know that Ethics Quickstep actually started the recon of this race on Wednesday just outside his house in a place called Strepens. Road of 140 kilometres, and went to look at the last brand new climb that isn't cobbled, by the way. The 13th and final climb will come with 32 kilometres to go. It's the Boombeker, and it's my understanding that Ethics Quickstep weren't too worried about any danger that that particular climb caused to anybody. "90 kilometres to go then. 6 of the 13 climbs already ridden, but all the most important ones, and the cobbled sectors as well. We'll go over the Haaghoek on 2 more occasions. The famous Langemunte comes in the final 20 kilometres. And Direct Energie, well, what a start to life they've had. They had to change their sponsor. They almost closed their operations at the end of last year, the French team. They've got a slightly different name on the back of the jersey today, Poweo. That's actually the Belgian brand of the French company, Direct Energie. Breakaway on the left-hand side, the 3 riders from the 3rd Division Continental team from Belgium, Van Anders Willems, on the left-hand side. They're in the black jerseys with the yellow, red and blue stripes there. Christian Haas, the former British champion, now 36 on the left-hand side with the One Pro Cycling jersey. And there's Goujard. Such a talented rider. What is he going to make of his career? He's been going at it for 2 years now at this level. Excellent time trialist. Hugely strong in a group. We've seen him get into breakaway after breakaway after breakaway. Really long odds, and perhaps considered a good bet before today, but out there in the break and doing his bit for an Asher Dozere team that, well, isn't exactly littered with stars, but they've got some experienced riders in the shape of Jesse Sargent, the Kiwi rider, Sebastian Churgo and Damien Gaudin there as well. New signing this winter for them. Well, talking of favourites behind, we have two previous winners of the race here. Philippe Gilbert, we already saw signing in and mentioned he was already in both 2006 and 2008. He's been away, he's won the World Championship, he's won stages on the major Grand Tours. More importantly, he's ruled the Ardennes for a while. He's back on the cobbles, and the word is he really wants to have a good go at winning the Tour of Flanders before the end of his career. Pipo Pozzato, another former winner, is here as well, riding for Southeast. Onto the Haaghoek we go. 2.2 kilometres long. A section of cobbles. It's great to see the first images of the season. Riders rolling along on these cobbles. There are going to be harder days out there when it's wet and pretty miserable. Yes, it's cold today, but these are perfect conditions for racing, really. I think the thing that most will join me in hoping for is not so many crashes. We want the likes of Bonen and Cancellara to be going up for one final season against each other. Cancellara said that he will definitely finish this year. There's still a bit of a doubt over Tom Bonen. The word on the street is that there might be a will for him to carry on. Hasn't officially announced anyway that this would be his last year, but many people assuming so. Interesting stat from the start list of 199 riders, in fact, was the fact that there were 74 debutants here. Average age quite high. See likes of Christian Haus on the left-hand side. One Pro Cycling, a new team here, but their average age up at around 30. The youngest team is Sturting Service with an average age of 24. But a lot of older riders making their Omloop at Nieuwsblad debuts. No lack of experience in racing this kind of terrain. Just not too many have raced this particular race before. It's a race that's in its 71st edition. If you don't know too much about it, it was started by the Het Volk newspaper in 1945, a rival to the great Ronde van Vlaanderen or Tour of Flanders. That was historically won by Het Nieuwsblad, but the rivalry between the two papers was so fierce that Het Nieuwsblad used to refer to this race as Gent instead of Het Volk. Het Nieuwsblad have since bought the race out, and it is now the Omloop at Nieuwsblad. Katusha with riders up to the front. They've got a nice new kit this year on the left-hand side with their red jerseys and big white K on the front. They've got a big job to do today for Alexander Kristoff. Of course, it's often the case in a race like this that riders looking to be good at the Tour of Flanders, of which Kristoff was a winner last year, and Paris-Roubaix, don't particularly want to show too much of their form this year. And at this stage of the year, it's a well-known fact that Fabian Cancellara never comes here. Usually sat on the sofa at home, sizing up and looking at the shape of his rivals. Usually on the phone to Dirk de Mol. But I can tell you that de Mol is actually in attendance at this race. He's looking after Jasper Stuyven from the car. And here we go, look at this. We're getting towards the entrance to the Haaghoek and the first bit of an acceleration forward. It's all about being in the right positions as we come onto the cobbled sectors and climbs. Tony Martin very close to the front as well. He's not going to be one of the leaders for Ethics Quickstep today, but I have it on fairly good authority that he is a protected rider. That alongside Terpstra, Bonen and Van den Berg. I know that Wisniewski and Vermoot were in charge of doing their best early on. Ilio Kessler, seen him already towards the front here, is the road captain for this race. And Ethics Quickstep, well, after what happened last year when they had 3 of the 4 riders in the final selection and still managed to lose out to an exemplary performance by Ian Stannard. They are under pressure to right the wrongs of last year. Because in fact the whole cobbled campaign was a bit of a disaster really for Ethics Quickstep last year. They sort of redeemed themselves in the hilly Ardennes in April. With a superstar team of Bonen, Kesse, Vermoot, Maas, Martin, Terpstra, Wisniewski and Vandenberg. There's not too much of an excuse for not being protagonists here, really. They also have so much experience in the car with Wilfred Peters and, of course, Tom Stales, who's another of the two directors sportifs here. He's a former winner of this race back in 1996. Nice to see the Belgian jersey at the front as well, Preben van Hekke. A lot of rumours that he would get a move to a World Tour team this year. Didn't quite matter, and I'm sure it's a huge honour for Topsport Vlaanderen to have the jersey in the team. Now Trek Factory Racing on the left-hand side. Man's second wheel there is Jasper Stuyven. Really interesting to see how he's going to go. Of course, up against the likes of Sagan, Van Avermaet, Terpstra, Christoph, all those huge line of favourites that we've seen. And we're just seeing the lieutenant or lieutenant but one come to the front and look after their main riders. We've seen Benati in the fluorescent yellow of Tinkov, the Russian team. Already a winner this year, and they've got a couple of... Nobody who has won here has gone on to win the Tour of Flanders. That has never happened. It's only happened with Paris-Roubaix on a couple of occasions. In fact, the last rider to win Omloop at Nieuwsblad and then at least one of the 4 spring monuments in the same year was the Lion of Flanders himself, Jan Mozeil, all the way back in 2000, which was very much a different era. He won Paris-Roubaix after winning Omloop that year. Other riders, Eddy Merckx, yes, had to be him, didn't it? Milan-San Remo and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, as well as Omloop in 1971. He did it in 73 as well with Paris-Roubaix and Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Roger de Vlaming did it in 79, winning San Remo as well as Omloop at Nieuwsblad. And apart from Mozeil, the only other man to do it was Franco Ballerini, the Italian, the late Franco Ballerini, winning in Paris-Roubaix. Without forgetting Frank Vandenbroek, pardon me, in 1999. Liège-Bastogne-Liège as well as Omloop. So it would be a specific club to enter if you were to win here and go on to take form. A word of caution for anybody wanting to win this race. So we can talk about Tom Bonen, who has won just about every UCI race that favours him in the world, but he's had 13 goes at this. And he's never won this race. It's the one big glaring gap on his palmarès. The word is that he's not quite up to speed yet. Training hard. He had that very nasty crash in the Abu Dhabi Tour at the end of last year when he got his form back. He was racing well. Lost a little bit of his hearing in his left ear as well, but started the season. He was going at the Algarve, had a bit of a crash there. But he's here racing well, and Tom Bonen, always a man to look out for. Reached the podium on 4 occasions in Omloop at Nieuwsblad. Never a winner here. First glimpse of Andy Fenn a minute ago as well, the Scotsman riding for Team Sky. I know many of you watching back in the United Kingdom. Lots of viewers down under in Australia as well. I can tell you that Orica Green Edge are racing, and you have Matt Heyman, who's a very good chance of doing something for your team here. He was out reconning the brand new finish yesterday, riding up and down the pavement for about 10-15 minutes, just checking every contour of the arrival. He's a previous winner of a Senni Classic just a few years ago when he took Dwars door Vlaanderen. Bit of wind blowing across the road. Just see, positioning already vitally important with 81.8 Ks to go. Any sort of gaps that are made towards the end of the race here, and you've got teammates involved, you can push on and make the difference. What makes these races so exciting. 12 in the breakaway on the 71st Omloop at Nieuwsblad, 81.5 kilometers to go. 3 minutes and 22 for the riders out in front. 4 Belgians, 4 Frenchmen, 2 Dutch riders, 1 Australian and 1 Brit. They are Alexis Gougeat of AG Gazelle Mondial, Bora Argon 18, Zach Dempster, Hugo Hofstetter riding for Cofidis. He's at the front now in the red jersey. Julien Maurice, another Frenchman for Direct Energie. Fortuner Vital Concept has Benoit Jarrier up there. Christian House for One Pro Cycling. Brian van Gouten riding for Roompot Oranje Peloton. Kevin Vermelsen for Wanty Group Gobert. Maxime Farazane for Topsport Vlaanderen Baloise. And 3 riders from Veranda's Willems cycling team, Stefan Summeren, Brecht Dana and Kai Reus. Interesting that only 4 of the lower level teams have missed the break. A few tellings off issued in the car behind to the riders from Stulting. Southeast, Nippo Vini Fantini have no real leader or strongman here. Vital for their presence at the race that they made the break today. CCC Sprandi Polkovits have got some strong riders, but you might have expected them to try and be in the break as well. It's not always an easy thing. Thanks for all your tweets and comments, by the way. Remember to let us know how things are going as the race hots up. Predictions, comments on what you're seeing as well. It's always good to have you involved. Christian House, nice to see him racing at this level again. Had a long, extremely combative career riding for mainly continental teams on the British circuit in the last few years. One Pro Cycling moved up to Pro Continental 2nd Division level this year, and not too many better riders than this man to work hard and bring his experience. Training away in the sunshine as he normally does in the winter. Not too far away from the Capare now. And here we go, 450 meters long. Capare, the real grinding down of the peloton begins now. Start this next series of climbs out of position, and you're going to pay for it. 3 minutes 16 for the break. For them, it's all about just keep working together. I wonder, looking in particular at Alexis Gougeat, how much energy has he expended? How's he feeling? Because when this starts to come back and anybody else is going to think about launching a counter-attack, then that'll be the man. Kilometre long, the second part of this climb, pardon me, the Capare, unpaved at this point. Oh, we were talking a minute ago that winning the Omloop.
Tranquille Alex, tranquille Alexis, tranquille.
Omloop is no guarantee. Oh, we've had a crash. Pardon me, it looks as though most riders are okay and up again. It can't have been a big spill, but coming on to that Capare, the next climb, the next section of cobbles, you can just see the nerves coming up. And the first of what I predict will be probably several incidents like this today. Somebody braking a little too hard, a touch of wheels. One of the many reasons. As we see Peter Sagan, the world champion, just caught up there. Well, you have to be well positioned at the front of the group. Of course, if someone goes down a little more forcefully, might take you out for the whole spring. There's Viviani on the left-hand side, who's combining his Olympic track ambitions in the Omnium with road racing for Sky at the start of the season. Trek looking to stay near the front. Ilio Kessa not far away. There's Michał Gołasz, the former Polish champion, now riding for Sky, a former teammate of Ilio Kessa at Etixx Quick-Step. He's moved over with the man he does most of his riding for, in fact, Michał Kwiatkowski, the former world champion. There's Niccolò Bonifaci on the left-hand side with the glasses on. The white earphones in. Race radios in use here again on the Europe Tour this year. Alongside Manuel Quinziato, who's going very well at the minute for BMC. He's wearing the black and red jersey as a couple of road obstacles pointed out by motorbikes, and then the riders looking after each other's health. Riders approaching the Capere then. Another short left turn, all these rural farmland roads, cobblestones. The narrow nature of the roads makes it hard in itself. One short of 200 riders. So the Capere begins with that 450-metre cobbled section. And it goes uphill for another kilometre. Kreuzberg coming up, then we get to the Teyenberg and the Echenberg. A couple of climbs taken out this year, in fact. The Molenberg is one of them. That's being used in the women's race. I know on Twitter many of you asking for updates of that race. Unfortunately, we have no images of that here, so I'm unable to give you any sort of update as far as that's concerned. Apologies in advance for that. 174 at the back is Yuma Koishi, Japanese rider riding for Nippo Vini Fantini. They'll again go to the Giro d'Italia this year. And the aforementioned Stolting Service Group, new German team, led by Gerald Ciolek, a monument winner himself of Milan-San Remo. Other names, perhaps not on the front line, but on the lowdown to look out for. Borut Buzic, who's previously done well in Dvarsdorp-Vlaanderen, he's running for Cofidis. Florian Seneschal and Kenneth van Bilsen with them. What about Sylvain Chavanel, riding for Dira?
Comment passer?
Johan Lebon. Oh, Fredo.
Moreno Hofland and Mike Turnison riding for Lotte NL Jumbo as well. Dries Devenijns and Olivier Naassen are both local boys riding for Yam Cycling, and Arnaud Demar is here for Française des Jeux. Brief period of calm in the peloton again. Not going to last that long. On their way nicely up the Capere for the minute. No attacks as of yet. Breakaway gap still more than long enough here. 2 minutes and 59 seconds. Quinziato doing a good job for BMC on the left-hand side. Several winning options themselves. Will it be Van Avermaet? Will it be Gilbert? Jempi Drucker picks up a lot of good place finishes as well. Plenty of top tens for the rider from Luxembourg. And Rick Zabel's here too. Says he's much more of a classics man than a sprinter like his dad Eric was. Still a young rider and learning the ropes though. Boy from Poppel. His brother Danny's gone to Sky this season. Had a few injury troubles earlier in the year. Knee problems have meant that he hasn't done too much racing yet. But Boy from Poppel still riding for Trek Segafredo, as we call them this year. They've got a new second sponsor, the strong team that's turned up here. Marco Coledan, we've mentioned Bonifacio already. Very experienced domestique in the shape of the Basque rider Markel Irizar. And Edward Turns. Such a good year last year, came so close in Scheldeprijs. He signed from Topsport Vlaanderen. That's nothing more than a comfort break there for the Lotto Soudal rider. It looks as though the rider from CCC Sprandi Polkovica had the same idea. Not too much time for many more of those though. Ace already hotting up. So strong out for the minute. Those in front know that if they want to make early moves on, we're thinking Taaienberg, Egenberg and cobbled sectors that come to that. They've got to get this gap down a little. 2 minutes 45. Anybody who's hoping that it's going to come back together for a bit of a sprint will be happy to let these guys wear themselves out for a little longer. But a big group of 12, you never know. How much energy have they been conserving? And the good news for some of the big name riders behind is that there aren't too many big name riders out here in front, or people with particular reputations of being strong men, with the exception of the man on the left-hand side of your screen now. Perhaps you could put Christian Haas in that category too. But Alexis Goujat has the potential to turn into one of the top riders of his generation. He's 22 years of age now, from Normandy. Scheduled to have a full classics programme, and then all being well, possibly his first crack at the Tour de France. Won a welter stage last year from his maiden Grand Tour from a breakaway, did Goujat. He's been likened to Fabien Cancellara, or maybe could he end up being more of a French Geraint Thomas, pointing at stage races as well. It's going to be really interesting to see how it develops. Christian Haas has done most of his developing now, into his late 30s. Still showing he's a top pro though. But if you're at the back of these groups right now, struggling to hang on, it's going to be a long day. Either that or you'll be praying for the team car or the broom wagon. There's Yuma Koishi, who seems to have been at the back permanently. Kent Joa, who's the Estonian champion there. I wonder if they're just trying to see who's caught out at the back. 2 minutes 40. They've got their own numbers on that board, just in case they've forgotten who they were. This is Ivar Slik, riding for Rompot Oranje Peloton. mechanical problems for him. Of course, the Dutch riders don't have a particularly long, great history here. In fact, as we see Jurgen Roelants making his way back to the peloton. Roelants, a Belgian, won't want to be out of that group for too long. One of the main players for Lotto Soudal, but as far as Roompot and Brian van Gutem, who's in the break, and Ivo Slik, who we saw at the back there, well, Dutch riders until 2011 when Sebastian Langeveld won. They hadn't won this race since 1987 when Teun van Vliet was the victor. Great story about him, written by the local journalist Dirk van Neverseel. He was a winner in 1987. He also took the yellow jersey, but had to retire tragically 2 years later with a bowel infection that almost cost him his life. Overcame cancer a couple of times, and the great thing was that he survived all that and all those problems and was there the day Sebastian Langeveld won in 2011 when he just beat Juan Antonio Fletcher to the line. Fletcher had been a defending champion from the year before for Team Sky. So a big race for the Dutch. You'd think that their best opportunity of getting something from today would lie at the feet of their national champion, Nicky Terpstra. Of course, all sorts of things would have to fall into place for that to happen. Not just tactically out there on the road, but also in terms of tactics, pecking order in the team, and even a few egos as well. Not short of a few big names, are they? Ethics Quick-Step, Tom Bonen, Tony Martin, Nicky Terpstra, Steen Vondenberg, Nicholas Maas, a fast man in there as well. Well, the wind is howling out there on the course. It's just complicating things a little. Shake out of the legs from Christian Haus. Everybody will be starting to ask themselves how they feel here. Front group just strung out a little more. We certainly know they're strung out more behind. Long way to go. And look at this. Katusha have been putting a lot of work in at the front. If you've been back to the car to get some food, drinks, tactical instructions, then you've got to be towards the front again. Bonifacio not far away here for Trek Segafredo. And look at Philippe Gilbert on the left-hand side. We saw him put in an attack or two on sprint stages in the Dubai Tour, just showing off, testing his own condition. As your Desert rider off the back as well. Gilbert will be wanting to be where he is, and he's also got the new national coach to impress as well. Olympic Games and World Championships coming up this year. New national coach is Kevin de Weert, former teammate of Tom Bonen at Quick-Step. De Weert said he's looking forward to seeing a few of the younger riders perhaps prove themselves today, and I think mentioning that, he's looking in particular to Jasper Stuyven, who's riding as leader of Trek today as we're on our way to Ronse. And of course Tissa Benoot. Tissa Benoot, who is a bit of a Rolls Royce of a rider already, just second year into his professional career. You get the feeling that there's little he can't achieve. The man who rides for Lotto. There's Jurgen Roelants. Jens de Busser alongside him. Terrible twosome who can do plenty of damage. De Busser, the former national champion as well. But going back to Benoot, he's already proven himself to be a superb racer. Hugely versatile, endlessly competitive. That's before he's been able to get put together too many competition days, really. Star in the making. 5th on his Ronde van Vlaanderen debut last season. And if you want any sort of indication as to the form he's already in this year, he had 2 top 5 finishes in the Mallorca Challenge. He got through the Tour of the Algarve fairly well last week as well. I think it was the first mountain stage where he was up there with some of the very best. Inside 70 kilometers to go. Where are we in terms of obstacles? Well, the next is going to be the Kruisberg. That's Helling number 8, or hill number 8. 13, the 3 more than last year, by the way. Still the same 10 cobbled sectors, though. You've put together all the parkour of all the great races at this time of the year around this part of the world. They all intertwine, wind round one another. Many of the same cobbled sections, climbs you see here will be in use over the next 6 to 8 weeks or so. You'll see a few of them in the Tour of Flanders itself. Sylvain Chavanel not far from the front either right now. Almost won this race a few years ago when he was in Quick-Step colours. And it's good to see the world champion on the right-hand side. Interesting to see how world champions have done recently. As I said right at the top of the broadcast today, that the last man to win in the rainbow jersey was Freddie Martins in 1977. Well, a few years ago, Thor Hushoff was a world champion, 2011. He finished 33rd, 5 minutes behind Sebastian Lagerfeld. Paolo Bettini, 2008, was 90th, 6.5 minutes behind the winner, Philippe Gilbert. Another Gilbert win, the 2005 world champion Tom Boner still had the jersey in 2006, of course, at the start of the year, and he finished 13th, the best recent performance by a world champion. That was over 2 minutes down on Gilbert. Oscar Freire was world champion at this race in 2002. He finished 64th behind Johan Museeuw. Laurent Brochard in 1998, finishing 28th behind 2 minutes and 40 behind the winner, Peter van Peterhem. And Van Peterhem, who won in 97 as well, was there the world champion then, 49th. So not a great recent record, is it? And if you factor in the recent racing or lack of racing for Peter Sagan, hasn't raced since Argentina in San Luis, and you can't consider him one of the big favourites. Likes of Christophe will be going well today after 6 wins in the last few weeks. He's got to be up there though, Peter Sagan, and he has a great team. And perhaps a couple of other members of his team could profit from the fact that he's going to be a marked man as well. Some good riders in form. Benati, Gatto have both won so far. Maybe even Adam Blythe if he's well placed as well. On to the Kruisberg then. Breakaway 1 minute and 44 out in front right now. And since we came to air, that gap has almost halved in the space of 20 kilometres or so. See, the cobbles are a little more exposed on this Kruisberg climb. A little harder than the Caperet. Gradient rather steeper as well. Gouchard on the right-hand side, pushing a strong gear, wanting to remain with the top riders at the front from Veranders Willems. Christian House on second wheel, the former British champion. Gouchard, who still has that gel in the back pocket, some sustenance should he need it. House looking good here, looking confident. Riding right in the crown of the cobbles. Always rider preference as to where you ride, how you ride. Oh, we've had a couple of riders down. One of those riders, number 96 from Team Lotto NL Jumbo, is Dennis van Vinden. And with him from Orica Green Edge, looks to be Magnus Cort Nielsen. Magnus Cort Nielsen on the right-hand side, the Dane. This is how it happened. Look on the left-hand side of the screen here. It's happened quite close to the front as well. Just on the right-hand side of the road. One of the Lotto Soudal riders involved. And a rider from Etixx Quick-Step was Nicholas Maas. 27 is Tosh van der Sande. The most worrying of the images there was that of 96 Dennis van Vinden, who remained down and was being looked at by the medics. And just like the last time we had a few riders down, oh dear, puncture here. Or even not, it's a stuck chain for Yuri Filozzi. Italian rider for Nippo Vini Fantini. Not exactly the place where you want that to happen. But I was just saying that it was that approach to this particular part of the race, that approach to one of the cobbled sectors and one of the climbs. That's where the fight is, not necessarily on the climb itself. It's getting into the position that you want to be in. Mechanical problem for one of the Bora Argonne riders as well. It looks to be Ralph Matschka. And you're looking at 1:07 here for Sky, who's Alex Peters, the neo-pro from Hackney in East London. Well, there's Maas towards the back on the right-hand side. He's got Ilio Kessa just in front of him. BM YMC with options towards the front. First time we've seen one of the Yam Cycling jerseys up there as well. They've changed, by the way, this year. They were navy blue last year. Up there in white this time out as Kessler gives Maas a good push up the Kreuzberg. One of the southeast riders towards the back. They've been pretty quiet, pretty anonymous so far. I can tell you that former winner Filippo Pozzato is in there somewhere. Peters makes his way up as Kessler is towards the back. Here's that crash again. One of the riders either hitting a sign or a curb on the right-hand side, taking 2 or 3 men down with him. And it's Dennis van Winden who is the man with what looks to be a wrist injury. Not great news at this time of the year. Maybe a real killer for the whole spring. We saw a couple of crashes in Omloop at Nieuwsblad last year. It was the week after when we got to Paris-Nice that we saw Tom Bonen go down and miss the whole of the classic season. Not to reappear really again until the Giro d'Italia. Continuous sound of marshals' whistles. This is the breakaway, by the way. 1 minute and 32 they have on the chasing peloton behind. House on the left-hand side. With him is a man from Direct Energie, Julien Maurice. We talked about Sylvain Chavanel, but they've also got young, I say young, been around a while now, mid-20s, Adrien Petit, who started the season winning very, very well at the Tropical Amissa Bongo in Gabon in Africa. Just under 65 k's to go. Well, thanks for all your tweets so far, by the way. A lot of you asking about the women's race. I can just say out the corner of the commentary box, the podium ceremony taking place right now. And it is a victory in rainbow stripes for Lizzie Armitstead. Pressure on you, Peter Sagan, to try and follow that. He's on the left-hand side here. Rainbow jersey on his back. We have one world champion winning today. One minute 35 with 64 k's to go. Great helicopter shot there, just shows the evidence of how sharp, how narrow, and how messy these roads can be at times. It is of particular advantage to live and train in these parts. If you know the roads, you know which lines to take. Of course, it's not always possible given the furious, fast and complicated nature of bunch riding. If you've got the map of the course in your head there, it can certainly help. First Pozzato shot to the left-hand side. Tony Martin at the front. Well, Tony Martin, German time trial star, he's always refused to come and do these races. He's never enjoyed riding on the cobbles. He was victorious on the cobbled stage of the Tour de France last year. Many people, many coaches, and Ralph Aldag in particular when he was at Edix Quickstep, tried his best to twist Tony's arm, tell him that he would be good on the cobbles. This year, with that victory at the Tour de France last year and having achieved everything he's achieved and everything there is to achieve in time trialling, get the sense that Tony Martin is perhaps looking for a new challenge. Has he come to the cobbles a bit late in his career to get the experience required? That's the question. But he's riding today, and this is only his second ever cobbled semi-classic. Raced Dwars of Vlaanderen in 2008, finished 42nd. So there were 12 in the break, now down to 11. Hugo Hofstetter on the left-hand side. French rider for Cofidis. Neo-Pro this year. Well, what an experience it will have been in that break today. His next task is to try and hang on with this lot for as long as possible. As it's so dry today that dust's being kicked up. most resemblant of an April day at Paris-Roubaix. One of the drier ones, obviously. First sighting of Luke Rowe on the left-hand side as well, the Welshman riding for Team Sky. With no Ian Stannard today, you get the feeling that Luke Rowe could be given a chance to ride for his own success. Onto the Donduré. Donduré, the next section of cobbles. Not classed as a climb, this is classed as section number 3 of the flat sections. I leave 7 after this. But after we're done on the Donduré, 5 kilometres time, that's when we get to the Taaienberg. That's where Edix Quickstep is surely said to be planning something. It's the only hill that's highlighted on their stems today. Those of you unfamiliar with how riders take on remembering the parkour and remembering where they're supposed to be active apart from the radio and the instructions they receive from their DS and road captain, they often have a little profile with keywords and things highlighted of the route. It's taped to the stems, which connects the handlebars to the bike frame. Edix Quickstep today looking at the Taaienberg. Problems for Alexandre Pichot. No such problems at the front of the group onto the Donduré for Daniele Benati. Benati in great form at the minute, winning a stage of the Ruta del Sol, the Tour of Andalusia. He's on the right-hand side of the shot as we look at it. And a few of the riders from Lotto NL Jumbo there. Their former rider, their former winner, current rider, pardon me, Sepp van Marke, the Belgian in the Dutch team, choosing to sit out of this race. Peter Sagan is really well placed at the minute, as is Greg van Avermaet. Sagan in the white jersey with the rainbow stripes to denominate the fact that he's world champion. He's riding for Tinkoff. Just behind him, Van Avermaet, the local boy, began his sports career as a goalkeeper in a football team before he dedicated his attention to cycling as a teenager. Big fight this for Alex Peters. What a learning day for him. One of the riders from Willems Verandas pushing things along on the Donduré. Heading next to the village of Nukirke. Wherever you go on this route, there will always be fans on the side of the road. Just outside the old velodrome, as we see it's Kaireus of the Netherlands. The start and finish here is right next to Kupke, famous very short Ghent track with a hugely steep bankings. They have the Ghent 6 every year. That building, the ICC and the Art Museum next to it today turned into the headquarters of the race. Just around a kilometre or so from the finish in the last few years in St. Peter's Square. Stijn Vandenberg to the front. In the meantime, we've had a hold up behind. 102 for Sky there is Michal Goash. Goash with a gearing problem. Dropped his chain, struggling to get it back on. Oh, right mess at this point in the race. So hard to catch up. One of these Sky service cars is coming to try and sort that out for him on this Donduré cobbled section. In the meantime, on the right-hand side in the yellow and white jersey, you had Robert Wagner, the former German champion. So the breakaway is being broken to bits now. Those who are strong enough to continue are making their move, and we've had problems for one of the Orica Green Edge riders. Orica Green Edge, who have Jens Kukkelaere there, 77 protected rider, and that's why he's getting the wheel off his teammate Alexander Edmondson. Kukkelaere wearing 77, he's the man just making sure the wheel's correctly in the back there. Brake calipers are set, the chain's properly put on. Oh, what a right old mess. Kukkelaere, who have been one of the 2 protected riders today for Orica Green Edge. He's a local boy, although he rides for an Australian team. And here was the problem. Edmondson quite cleverly stopping. Whether he got the call on the radio or not, I'm not sure. If he didn't, that's using his head well as a domestique. Julien Maury's still here. Alexis Goujard as well, as is Dana and Reus. No surprise really that Goujard is up there. What does he have left for the final 60 kilometres? Racing really underway now. One minute and 12 as we're into the final 60 Ks. Fenn on the left-hand side working. Trying to guide his men into position. There's Luke Rowe to the right of him as well. Gianni Moscon up there too. Already gaps appearing at the front. Of course, changes of direction, the wind blowing, that's not going to help anybody stuck behind. And we're on the fight to get on to Dondere and then Tayenberg. Tayenberg coming with 57.4 kilometres to go. No sign too much of Tom Bonen yet. Surely he's not going to miss his cure in what could be his final season. Stein Vondenberg is towards the front though. He's on the left-hand side with the new Ethics Quick-Step kit that is a slight resemblance to the Inter Milan football jersey. Well, that's a bunny hop and a half. Off the cobbles, onto the gutter. 1 minute and 3 now for the 4 riders out front. Alexis Goujard, the star of this group, without doubt. Julien Maurice having the experience. And now on to the Tayenberg. Maximum of 15.8% the gradient. And you can see how tight and how narrow it is to get on. Hence the reason positioning is so important. As well, if you're in the top 10, the top 15, you can find your spot over there on the gutter and you don't have to ride up the cobbles. In fact, when Tom Bonen first attacked on this particular climb years ago, people asking him why he started doing that all the time. It was initially in the Edri Harelbeke race. He said, well, it's quite simple. If you get ahead, you can get into the gutter and have an easier ride up. It's not necessarily about just putting those behind in danger and in the gutter and on the rivet. It's having the advantage yourself. All the hard riding done before you get on to the Tayenberg though. BMC know that. Daniel Oss at the front. The man who was in Zanzibar during the winter. And here comes Luke Rowe. Luke Rowe then on the Tayenberg, fighting for first position. This race is on the way now, and no sign of Tornado Tom Josh yet. It's all about the man from Wales. Well, Luke Rowe on the left-hand side really giving it a go. And this is where we can often see the final selection, or at least a second selection being made. Rowe looking brilliant here. And Van Avermaet is following him well. So Luke Rowe there, Greg Van Avermaet alongside him. Following up behind, you can see the Lotto Soudal team. Peter Sagan not too far back either. He is third wheel in this particular group. Daniel Oss, of course, is not going to get too worried about his team's performance. I can tell you the rider from Lotto Soudal is Tosh van der Sande, I think. I'll double check that in a minute. Could well have been Tisa Benoot. So 1 or a 7. Sagan looking good here as well. Oss alongside him. Sagan's so good that he's happy to take up a bit of the work here. Topsport Vlaanderen left to chase. Ethics Quick-Step missing this move for the minute. I can say that Stein Vondenberg is the most advanced rider for them. So no Tom Bonen on the Tayenberg. There is Peter Sagan. Daniel Oss is with him. Luke Rowe further up the road. 48 seconds, and anything that's left of the group out in front isn't going to be there for too much longer. Tayenberg done, and we're next heading to the Eckenberg in 5 kilometers time. So Sagan and Os's task immediately is to close the gap here. I have a feeling it was, in fact, Tisa Benoot who went out in pursuit of Greg van Avermaet. Peter Sagan is pumped here. We wondered whether he'd have the form. We wondered whether it'd be a day maybe for Gatto, Benati. Sagan looking good enough, hanging out close to the front, waiting to follow the right move. He saw Luke Rowe go, Van Avermaet followed, Benoot was there, and Sagan, in his rainbow stripes, wanted a piece of the action. Pretty impressive to ride Daniel Oss off his wheel like that as well. So onto these narrow roads, it gets all tense, it gets all technical. Yes, it's dry, but there's bits of dust about, bits of mud everywhere. It's slippy, it's dangerous. This is how Flandrian racing should be. So Luke Rowe on the right-hand side in the black. Just bridge the gap to one of the riders in the break. That's the Roompot rider, I think, Brian van Gouten. He's at the back in the orange shirt. It is Tisa Benoot for Lotto Soudal. Greg van Avermaet is there. And as expected, Peter Sagan, as soon as he went off and chased, showed he had the form. So, Tyenberg is done and the race is on. Who's going to have the strength to close any of the gaps? We have a couple of important teams that have missed out here. I'm thinking Katusha straight away and Ethics Quickstep. They have numbers to try and chase things down. Tinkoff aren't going to do any chasing. Sky aren't going to chase this either, neither are BMC. Lotto Soudal will be quite happy to see what Tisa Benoot can do as well. Here are the gaps. Breakaway of 4 still has 14 seconds on a second group. 35 seconds to group 3. And this is group 3 here on the road. Benoot taking up all the work. Rowe seated just behind him. Greg van Avermaet looking behind, wondering who's there. And of course, the presence of Sagan here is going to cause a few worries for these guys. They're all strong, fast riders. You bet your life that Peter Sagan was just about the fastest, though. Through the village of Ettighove. I remind you that Peter Sagan has not won yet at all in the Rainbow Champions jersey. Though towards the end of last year, turned up at the Abu Dhabi Tour, the inaugural edition of a race that was raced in 40-degree temperatures. Got a couple of second and third places. Before today, he said he was more curious to see how his first starts in Europe were going to go. He's also down to race tomorrow at Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. The minute he's chasing these guys, Goujian, Maurice, Dana and Reus, 2 Frenchmen, a Belgian and a Netherlander. .6 kilometers to go, and that means we're approaching the Eckenberg. Eckenberg, or quite simply Oak Hill. Ek meaning oak in the local Flemish language. A few looks around here. Kudos, I must say, to the 2 Verandas Willems riders, Dana and Breus. They're riding at a level way above their usual competition, really, here. Many of the World Tour teams, 12 out of the 18, are in this race. This is a very good group, then. Sagan is there. Dempster from the original breakaway. Christian Haus as well. But Luke Rowe, finally given his chance. He's put in a lot of work in the last few years as both a road captain with the British national team, a worker domestic for Team Sky, sacrificing his own opportunities in both classics and stage races. But he's here given his chance today. He'll soon be approaching the Eckenberg. It's 1.2 kilometers long Average of 5.2%, the gradient maxes out at 10%, as Petr Sagan behind, hoping to become the first ever Slovakian winner of this race, takes it up for the chasing group. Sagan has only ever raced one previous Omloop at Nieuwsblad, in fact. He was here as a neo-pro in 2010, but he's won a 3 Harelbeke before, on a circuit that includes many of the same roads and climbs, cobbled sectors as we see here. There's Greg van Avermaet. Such good form coming into this. I mentioned in the introduction to the race today that picking up the Nieuwsblad paper in its Sport World section this morning, they had a poll and many different people picking different winners, but the highest percentage of anybody was 19%, and that was next to this man's name. Van Avermaet, solid start to the season, yet to win though. His 8 starts in the Omloop at Nieuwsblad. He's finished in the top 6 on 5 occasions. He's had 5th, 2nd, and 6th in the last 4. Van Avermaet really leading them up. Eckenberg can get nice and steep at 10% in places. Benoot looking brilliant behind him as well. And it's interesting and pretty telling that anybody who was in the breakaway with these guys who had dropped back from the front group has been dropped altogether. It's just the 4 who attacked. Problems for a couple of the One Pro cycling riders in the meantime. Janto Barker wearing 181 there. 187 is the Aussie, Stil van Hoff. He's the man on the left-hand side of the picture right at the back now. 71 was Sam Bewley as well for Orica Greenedge. Sagan on the right-hand side in the gutter. Of course, it's a little easier than the cobbles, but it does have its problems, its pitfalls. There can be bits of gravel, there can be all sorts that can cause punctures. And Benoot looking the strongest of the 4. Well, he said he could be a Rolls Royce of a race, so the engines are already on, it looks like. Lotto Soudal, with one of the stars of the future. Could today be his day? We saw him chatting to Philippe Gilbert, who's being interviewed with him before the start of the race. Gilbert launched his own road career here. 2006 is where he took the big win. 2016, 10 years later, on the 10th anniversary, can it be Tisha Benoot? A lot of people questioning what kind of rider he still can be, because he was up there in Flanders, he's been up there on hilly races as well. Good from Sagan and Rowe behind, and that they've closed the gap straight away. We're waiting for the next chasing group and gaps to it. We've got one of the riders who's in the break, and here we go. A couple of riders from Yam Cycling. Sky have got presence here. Still nothing from Katusha, nothing from Ethics Quickstep. You're going to have to feel that pretty soon one of those teams, or both of them, have got to start working together. None of their riders even in pursuit here. First Katusha rider in the bunch, first Ethics rider in the bunch. Sky, Tinkoff still with riders up near the front as well. Frances Desjeux and Aldo Demar in the main group. Ethics Quickstep with a lot of their riders towards the back. There's Stijn van den Berg, the huge giant figure. Time gap's not too big. Flick of the elbow from Luke Rowe. Sagan not happy there, not happy at all. You've got a job to do it properly. Thankfully for him, somebody else there to give him a bead on. He wasn't bothered about the gel though. 50k still to go here. Remember, all the action happening from that 80k to go onwards, just after the feed zone. The last 30k's completely flat, no hills, a couple of cobbled sectors. You could quite easily miscalculate the eating, the feeding, the drinking. You've got to keep yourself well fed and watered. No use doing all the hard work and then messing it up. 16 seconds, the gap between the front of the race still on the left, still with Alexis Goujat there and Julien Maurice. And the big name riders who were briefly on the right-hand side of your picture. Well, this could be the last time that all 3-4 are out in front. Let's name check them with Goujard there for AG Desert Mondial. He's at the back in the brown, white and light blue. Two riders in black at the front, riding for Veranders Willems, a third division team. They are Kai Reus from the Netherlands, pardon me, and Brecht de Dane, the Belgian. And in the middle there, riding for the French team, Direct Energie. Julien Maurice wearing 156 and in the black and yellow jersey. This race is coming together beautifully. 50 Ks remain. Remind you of the obstacles we still have to overcome. Wolvenberg will be the next hill. Then the four cobbled sectors of the Ruttestraat, Karel Martelstraat, the Holloweg, the Haaghoek again for what will be the third time today. For Leiberg, Boombeek, Paardestraat, Liebehovenstraat and Langemunte. For now, it's on to the 11th out of the 13 hills. This is the Wolvenberg. Plenty of Belgian flags there. We've seen the Flandrian Lions as well. You could smell the frites and beer at the start today. The burger vans are out at the finish line as well. A few big screens up. But it's equally enthralling viewing on the road. These days of smartphones as well, people can watch the race at the same time. Sagan on the right-hand side in his rainbow jersey. Rowe on the left, the Welshman, in the black and blue of Sky. Van Avermaet of BMC. Rider from Flanders, and Tisse Benoot as well. Just briefly slips a gear. Now here's Alexis Goujard, trying to push on. Got to empty himself for the course here. Well, peloton at 1 minute and 4. Work to be done by Etixx Quick-Step and Katusha. Are they going to risk things, try and keep things together and then maybe bring things back later? I think the answer is that they're going to start doing some work now. 4 riders from Quick-Step. Tom Boner's up there. There's number 42, Floris Hertz. Gave up a medical career to start riding. Nicky Terpstra at the back of this group, so 5 riders from Etixx Quick-Step, pardon me. Terpstra, who's in his Dutch national champions jersey. Nicholas Maas is there, as is Stijn Vandenberg. The 15 at the front is Tony Martin. Second wheel was... Oh, we've got a problem for Moreno Hofland. Hofland, the Dutch rider, distanced already. And he was hoping to hang on to see if there was a small group coming together at the end. Not the case. 6 riders from Quick-Step now to the front. Katusha still holding their cards very, very close to the chest for the moment. Of course, you can have all the form you want in the beautiful hot climes of the Middle East. Coming back to the cold can be a shock, even for somebody from the north of Europe and Norway like Alexander Kristoff. So that group in front splitting. Sagan, Benoot, Van Avermaet and Rowe now just 30 or so meters behind the second half of it. Julien Maurice there. And it's Alexis Goujard who's plotting on. Whether they get away and stay away here with Quick-Step and Katusha, perhaps leaving a lot of the chasing until the climbs are out the way. Remember, still 30 Ks to go after that. We can work together. Could be a very interesting finish, and we could get a bigger group coming. Whatever happens, it's certainly a very, very good test for Peter Sagan. Onto the Karel Martelstraat, 1.3 kilometers of flattish cobbles. And Alexis Goujard from Normandy in northern France, in which the Tour de France starts this year. pushing ahead as a bidon for Greg van Avermaet. Lots of team workers, soigneurs dotted along.
Allez Julien, allez! Allez Julien, faut accrocher!
Bunny hop onto the pavement from Luke Rowe to get a little easier bit of riding in, and each and every rider follows. Of course, it's not always possible on the toughest sections of the toughest races. Certainly in the Ronde van Vlaanderen now we see a lot of the gutters that are barriered off. And this group of four is now about to become 6. Julien Maurice is one of the riders to be absorbed. He's the rider on the right-hand side with the yellow and black. It's Brechtedane from Veranders Willems. So 2 of the initial 12-man breakaway surviving here, and 2 further up the road. They are Reus and Gougial. Bit of a free ride here.
Allez! Allez, Johan, allez!
Same luxury, although as many as possible are heading for the pavement. There's the distance as we look at it. 22 seconds between the first top 2 groups, and at the last count it was a further minute behind to the peloton. Yes, we had Tony Martin on the front behind, which is also a worrying prospect for anybody out there trying to stay in front here. No pavement here. Back onto the cobbles. This is the Karel Martelstraat. Almost immediately we go onto the Holloweg and heading towards Brakel, where we see the Haaghoek yet again. Longer section of cobbles today that alongside the Langemunte. The Haaghoek taken on 3 times. So you're looking at the second group on the road, 21 seconds behind the 2 leaders. Luke Rowe leading them. Of course, we hadn't had a British winner at all until 2 years ago here. Ian Stannard became the first Brit to win. Ilio Kessa back to the front. Tony Martin with him. Martin on the right-hand side, as you can see. Just coming up from the back of the group to do his turn again. Nicky Terpstra involved. And Nicholas Maas is second wheel. Martin now slips back into third wheel. Of course, he rode so well on the cobbles last year. That was in the Tour de France, but it's not just the terrain, it's the nature of the racing, the guys you're racing against. In the Tour de France, he was taking on a lot of general classification guys, people who perhaps were a little more wary on this terrain, which can also lend itself to more dangerous racing. But most people... Oh, Martin is down. A couple of riders down behind. So, Tony Martin down. Luckily getting straight back up again and not taking too many riders down with him. Tony Martin wearing 15. We're just saying that things can be difficult. That's a very dangerous place to try and sort your bike out. Adrien Petit there, almost having his arm and his front wheel taken off him. Here it is, just coming off the cobbled section, a little bit slippy, a little bit of mud there. Nicky Terpstra just about saving it on the left-hand side. Martin there, Petit going down behind. And I think that everybody else more or less stayed on their bikes. You could see that Petit slammed on the brakes, tried his best to save things. Even some of the spectators just asking riders to slow down, everybody radioing in to say whether they're okay or not. And that's a little bit of a shock. Just going to slow the peloton down for a moment as well. They're 1 minute and 4 behind the leaders of this race. That's no means a disaster for anybody who wants to come to the line behind. But we have also a strong group of riders out in front too. A couple more opportunities still coming up to try and force the issue from the group behind as well. So a lot of people question, will Tony Martin need the experience? Crash can happen to anybody, but it's already happened to Tony Martin. Luckily he's back on his bike and he's okay. No other casualties we could see. Kudos to Direct Energy, they've been animating this race already today. In the breakaway with Julien Maurice, we've seen Chavanel riding close to the front. We saw Adrien Petit in the top 10 there when he was taken down. From a question of pride, they'll be pretty happy that the Moneybags team from Flanders, Ethics Quickstep, are still behind. Really well done to Kai Reus. It's pretty obvious who was the man with all the class. And plenty of talent, given the fact he rides on a World Tour team. And he's been much talked, not particularly well known out there and riding well with him. The wind's still very audible in the effects microphones. You can see just on the right side the blades of grass rustling along. It's not blowing a gale today, but there is certainly a bit of wind about. Just seeing which direction it's blowing as well. Just the shape in which both groups are riding. Going from right to left as we look at it. Echelon forming behind. Each rider tries to protect themselves as much as they can. Just get that extra bit of rest. Contact then between the top two groups. Leading group of 8 riders now has 1 minute and 2 seconds. Goujar quickly settles into the group. And somehow, but Anders Willems have still managed to keep 2 riders there. Julien Maurice still in touch too. Luke Rowe has taken it up. Proudly wears the Welsh flag on his sleeve. One of 2 proud riders from Wales in the Sky setup. Behind Thomas, but let's not forget that the boss is a Welshman and a fluent Cymraeg or Welsh speaker as well, Dave Brailsford. Recently made an appearance on the television in the Welsh language soap. A minute, on to the next cobbled sector. It's the Haaghoek, 2 kilometres long. And just a couple of kilometres following the end of this, we'll have the Leiberg, and then 5 k's later, the Boombeker, the final climb. So 1 cobbled climb still left, 2 climbs all in all. Following this, 3 more cobbled sectors. The obstacle's not quite out of the way yet. Get the feeling as well that we're just 8 riders here. Some of whom have been in the original break. It's not fully enough. There is a chasing group developing though. All depends on the will of the teams behind. This chasing group at 23 seconds now. Yam Cycling having presence. They came here with Oliver Naas and Pardomir.
Oui, avec Jarier. Il y a encore du monde, hein. Il y a encore du monde, hein.
local rider. Dries Stevenijns as well, going great guns, but some saying perhaps he's lost a bit too much weight. Oh, we've had a mass crash behind. A mass crash behind. Several riders from BMC down. And a couple of them not looking too good, I'm afraid. Philippe Gilbert is one of them. Gilbert on the left-hand side, down on the floor. So Gilbert down and Jean-Pierre Drucker as well. And I'm afraid that is they out of the running for this race. One rider from Orica Green Edge, with the size of the frame, you'd have to guess that it's Matt Heyman, but we'll wait to have a look. But confirmation in the graphics there that Philippe Gilbert is down. Also out of the mix for BMC is Floris Hertz. There's a rider from Roompot still on the floor as well. And I'm afraid, not sure how the crash happened, but it wasn't particularly good in terms of its result. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Floris Hertz looks to be in pain there, holding his wrist. Looks as though Gilbert might be able to get back on his bike, which is good news. Orica Green Edge, I think, are going to be a little less lucky. There's Jean-Pierre Drucker sitting down for BMC. In the meantime, the gap is at 49. I'll be one of the men out in the front. This is what happened. Left-hand side looks as though either a spectator or maybe one of the signs has had something to do with it. There's a helicopter shot. Onto the Leiberg. It's just under a kilometre long. Max is out at 13.8% though. For the minute, this is the Arsal Depart. Not an easy hill, certainly after a lot of racing this early on in the season. And the advantage of being out there, despite wearing yourself out, is that you're not at the mercy of any of those crashes that might happen behind in the peloton. This is the leading group of the race now. The red on the left-hand side, the youngster from Flanders, Thijsse Benoot, flicks his elbow. The man coming to the front is Luke Rowe from the United Kingdom. He rides for Team Sky. Behind him, a man who needs no introduction. In the rainbow stripes, the world champion, Peter Sagan. This is a chasing group. Jam Cycling, who have several fast riders here. We talked about Stevenijns and Nassen. It is Narsen in the chase here, and what a good ride this is from Gianni Moscon as well. Italian under-23 champion, neo-pro for Sky. And I know in the Sky hierarchy, they're very impressed with this rider. This is a chase behind, peloton settling down again after those crashes. Finn on the right-hand side. Just less than 40 Ks to go. One climb remains. That for the breakaway. Sylvain Chavanel chasing in this group as well. Bora rider looks to be Scott Thwaites. Very, very interesting riders in there, but they might be best served by holding their horses a bit, because look what's coming up behind. They're going to get some extra firepower at the top of this climb. What remains of the peloton. So Moscon on the left. Gianni Moscon is 21 from Trentino. Dave Brailsford described him as the best rider in that category from Italy. Actually comes from the same Zalf amateur team that produced many a top rider over the last few decades. 80 of their riders have gone on to be professional in that time. Now Niki Terpstra caught between the two groups there. He's a man who'll want to be in the front group, no doubt. Christian Knees for Sky. You can see not just the gradient, but where you were when that crash happened, and the wind starting to affect things. It's the sort of racing that you can get used to seeing time and time again over the next few weekends. A few riders from Katusha. The big soul in there is Alexander Kristoff. Well, if that is him, he's way down. Still time to come back, given the fact that the gaps are so short at the front. But there's a lot of big-name riders who will want to attack and avoid a sprint. There's still terrain on which to do that. This is the lead of the race with Sagan, Benoot, Gouja and Van Avermaet. Joining them, Rowe, Maurice, Dane and Reus.
Ja, iets doen. Maar het zijn de mannen van ETX Quickstep die voorlopig de koers in handen nemen.
En op 3/4 minuut zitten.
Ik zou eens willen zien of Bonen hier eigenlijk in dat groepje zit. Ik heb Bonen nog niet gezien
Nee,
vandaag.
nog niet
geen
in
enkel beeld.
nee.
Dat kan natuurlijk wel goed zijn. Hè?
Ja,
Maar je zou hem toch al eens moeten zien.
Ik ben daar even blijven kijken of hij daar achteraan in dat groepje uit die bocht kan. Misschien zit hij daar wel. Hier is nu een overlegmoment tussen Maas en Wisniewski.
Ja, er zijn woordjes in. Dus de koers gaat toch nu geregeld worden door de ploegleiding van achteruit. Renners kunnen ook met elkaar spreken. We zagen daar de mannen
van Poppel, die toch wel kloek teruggekomen is.
Ja.
Daar zit ook
Van
Oscar
de Kruisberg.
Giotto. Daar achteraan zit er nog eentje van ETX Quickstep.
Là, je vais à gauche, hein.
Daar zit Bonen.
Ja.
Bonen in de op.
Confirmation of the chase group with Narsen, Moscon, Thwaites and Chavanel. Van Summeren is there as well. Chavanel, the former French champion, who's already on the board and winning again this year. Brand new Direct Energy team. It's a new name, but it's the same setup where he began his career, under the orders of Jean-René Bernardaud. Here is Chavanel towards the front, towards the end of his career as well now. Paris-Nice coming up, a good race for him too. Always opportunities in that race. It's good for the all-round cycling fan experience that he's back in the saddle and back racing competitively again. He's been at Yam Cycling for the last couple of years without offering crumb of hope to a lot of his fans, really. I'm sure he would admit that he's been poor in his time with the Swiss team. His former teammates Narsen is there though. There is Narsen in the white. Thwaites on the left, the Yorkshireman. The man in the centre in the yellow and black who we've just been talking about, Sylvain Chavanel. And Sky will be very happy about this ride from Moscon. There's Fenn on the left-hand side in the black jersey coming to the front as well. Cycling who have Vegard Stakelongen on the right-hand side. And it's Quick Step with Nicholas Maas. 44 seconds. One more climb remains. It's the Boombecker. Quick Step were there having a look at the parkour the other day. They were said to be not too worried by the final climb. It's not cobbled at all, but there are still cobbles left in this race. When we get to 30 k's to go, we'll have a 10-kilometre section where we'll see normal road punctuated by 3 cobbled sections, the Padestraat, the Lippenhovenstraat and then Langemunter. And then we'll make our final turn back towards Ghent itself. Is proof of the fact that when we were wondering out loud a minute ago who was at the back for Katusha, it has to be Alexander Kristoff, otherwise they really would be working. It is in Kristoff's aim to bring the group back and hope for some sort of bunch finish, as Moscon is on the radio there for Sky. Katusha Trek Factory Racing with riders towards the front. Several riders towards the front. I know that Fabian Cancellara, watching at home on the television, will probably be very happy with how his team are performing. Because a lot of the team, minus him and minus Stijn de Volder. De Volder, who's got the flu this weekend, 2-time former Tour of Flanders winner. They'll be delighted with how things are going. Tom Boner still in the front group. And he is a man who now, seeing as how this is gone so far, will be hoping that it's pulled back together. 12 months ago there was a public inquiry almost into how Ethics Quickstep had failed to win. Patrick Lefevre saying he was not happy with how things had gone. Some sources from in the team calling the tactics by one of the directeurs sportifs Mickey Mouse. 3 against 1, they still didn't win. They've got to do something today. They've got to pull this back at least. 51 seconds. And on to the final climb of the day for the breakaway. And it's the Boombecker. A new climb in this race. It's short, it's sharp, there are no cobbles. And for the break, it's over, done and dusted already. So the climbing is done for these 8 out the front. 52 seconds is the lead. The question
come on!
is, what do they have left in the tank? Because there will be plenty of energy and plenty of people who want this to come back from behind. And as the gap comes down, are we going to see any counter-attacks from anybody behind on the cobbled sections? Anybody who perhaps doesn't fancy their chances in the sprint? Is the Belgian champion on the left-hand side, Preben van Hekken, moving up? Maas is still the man at the front for Ethics Quickstep. No sign of Heinrich Hausler yet. And Yam Cycling are going to make a move. Lotto want to follow this. Last opportunity as the peloton comes onto the final climb. Not too much terrain with which to make a big difference though here. Perhaps can put a few groups behind in trouble though. Start the panic of those teams who aren't involved at the front. Remember, Yam Cycling with Narsen were involved in the chase group. Stuyven third wheel, looking good, looking strong. Trek, who also have a strong team tomorrow with a couple of sprinters, the likes of Bonifacio and Nizzolo. Much more of a sprinters classic historically is Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. Devon Irons' little dig then off the front for Yam Cycling. He's pulled a couple of riders away. Well, Trek no representation in the front group. Lotto certainly do. And a couple of riders would make things easier for them, give them that little bit of an extra card to play. There is the representation, Tisha Benoot. Lotto Soudal riding a brilliant race here. I'll tell you that from behind in the bunch, Nicky Terpstra, after just avoiding that crash behind his back. Onto the Paardenstraat. Third from last cobble sector, 2.3 kilometers long. 55 seconds. The gap isn't really shifting. Sagan deciding that it was a little more dangerous in the gutter. We're into extra time in this race. So say somebody anyway. Dangerous game, shifting from the cobbles to the gutter where you exactly don't know what it's going to be like. Chance of a pothole or two, as you could see as well. That's for Avermaet with his hands riding on the tops. Interesting that Luke Rose choosing to ride these cobbles with hands right down in the drops. It's all about rider preference. .245 at the back, Brecht Dana. There's Kai Reus on the left-hand side, choosing to go on the cobbles. These are the chasers. Van der Sande and Edward Turns. Turns who took over all the social media account. Instagramming, he was doing everything yesterday in the last 24-hour build-up to the race. New signing from Topsport Vlaanderen after a very impressive year last year. He was good, particularly in Scheldeprijs. A big part of his teammate Jelle Vallijs' win in Dwars door Vlaanderen last year. Here come the peloton, what's left of it anyway, looking for that extra time. 30 Ks remain. Just to get some time gaps as soon as we can between those chasing on and the 8-rider break. We said that Nicky Terpstra was back. He's just making his way back towards the front as well, in the front third of the chasing peloton. Easily visible with his Netherlands national champions jersey. Long, long section, this Paardenstraat. Of course, if you know the road well, there are sectors, there are areas where you can get into the gutter here. For Reus, it's all about hanging on. Big rides for these guys in the continental teams. This stage in the career can open the eyes of team managers at second and first division level. It's all splitting up the hit behind. Chance for any counter-attack, but you've got to be such a strong rider and have something big left in reserve here. .57 seconds, the gap's growing bit by bit, if anything. Van der Sande is the man who went down very early on in the race, but he's been racing well since then. He's in the red. Just behind him is Edward Turns. But all that movement behind has meant that there is a group chasing on. We've seen Devon Hines having a go. We've seen Narsen having a go for Yam Cycling. One man who hasn't been too visible so far is a man who likes the cold conditions, Heinrich Hausler. In the meantime, mechanical problems for Kai Reus are going to mean that his break is done. Heartbreak for him. All of that hard work. Lotto getting so many bodies to the front here. Trek Lotto riding good races. Lotto in particular with presence in that front group as well. Interesting to see which Tinkoff rider is left behind too. Tinkoff rider in the front's the world champion. And if it stays together like this, you'd have to save it. If there is a good bike handler in the peloton, it is the Slovakian. From 1977, and Freddie Martin's the last time a world champion won here. It is not an historically good race for the world champs, and if he wins here, I'll be wanting to end that other curse that no winner of Omloop at Nieuwsblad has won the Tour of Flanders in the same season. Oh, big attempt from behind. Big effort this now. We've seen Turns having a go. On to the next cobbled sector. It's the Liebenhovenstraat. And after this, just one remains. Well, Turns is having a right go. This is the moment. If you've got anything left, give it right now. Chance to be in the mix. Effort faces on. Game riding down in the drops. It's Jasper Stuyven who's giving it a go now. Turns setting him up with a last attack. Stuyven trying to live up to the big name of Fabian Cancellara. A lot of people who said he can be the new Cancellara in his team. And I know that Dirk de Mol has come to this race especially to oversee Stuyven's challenge. Stuyven, who was expelled from secondary school. Since become a bit of an academic though, he's studying for a degree in marketing. He's certainly riding well here. I know many of you will remember with fondness his hard man win in the Vuelta a España last year. He broke his scaphoid 50 kilometers from the finish. Had to abandon the day after he won a stage. But it was his first ever win. A Grand Tour stage nonetheless. And he's been targeting these cobbled races ever since the start of the year. And he was doing the recon of Dwars-door-Vlaanderen as early as the first week of January. Started his racing in Mallorca. He's down for the Classics, then to go to the Tour of California. Winner of the junior edition of Paris-Roubaix in 2010, a former junior world champion when he beat Arnaud Demar in 2009. Third pro season now for a man from Leuven. And it's his attack that is trying to close the gap from the peloton. Sagan on the left-hand side. Van Avermaet takes his turn. Behind him is Rowe. Well, still 38 seconds ahead of Stuyven, who's got 14 on the chasing group behind. Want to hold off that group with all the Ethics Quick-Step riders wanting to bring this back. Would be a huge effort from Stuyven. 52 seconds still, though. Still evidence of that win. 25 kilometers to go. In the last kilometer, there is a bit of a wind as well. It's uphill. The last 300 meters, the steeper gradient. The last kilometer from under the railway bridge. A right turn with around 400 meters to go. The wind blowing in your face. It's not going to be easy. But this group's got to get there in contention before that happens. Or they even think about it. For the minute, they're working well together. Certainly the guys are out there in the initial break. A look over Flanders fields. There are Where's Stuyven? He's giving it a real go. He's a chaser, emptying himself for the cause. We said that Trek have played a good race so far. Yes, they don't have representation up front, but they've been with bodies to the front of each and every group. They've been some of the first riders into each and every cobbled sector and climb. As I said, Cancellara sitting at home will be happy with how they're riding. It's certainly been more active than Ethics Quickstep at the important times. Talk of the devil. Stein Vondenberg second wheel, Wisniewski still up there. Third wheel was Nicky Terpstra. Top two groups left and right of your screen. Van Avermaet on the left hand side, Luke Rowe there. And look at this Gouja on the right hand side, still coming through, still doing turns. He's not a passenger at all. Out in the break since the very beginning. And Alexis Gouja taking full and active part in this Omloop at Nieuwsblad. Now for Stuyven, looking at the time gaps, it's not shifting for him really. Still 33 seconds behind this 8-man leading group, and still only 13 ahead of the peloton behind. It's a brave effort, but he may well just end up emptying the tank for nothing. Benoit working hard. How hard is he working? And these are the days where he's going to get the experience. That's the part he lacks. He certainly has the talent. Ditto for this man. Just after he was a big name and won that Junior Paris-Roubaix and the Junior World Championship, he went off to race in the United States for a year. He was with Axel Merckx at the development team. Development team that's now Axion Hagen-Spermans this year. Tom Boner, just on the wheel of Nicky Terpstra. And again, should they be needed, Lotto Soudal still up there with plenty of riders to take up the mantle should they need it. Stig Brooks was there, de Bussere was there as well, as was Jürgen Roulants. If you're just joining us, you're watching the 71st Omloop at Nieuwsblad, a group of 8 riders, among which are the world champion Peter Sagan, Luke Rowe and Greg Van Avermaet out in the break here, 34 seconds ahead of a chaser in Jasper Stuyven and 48 seconds ahead of a peloton that still includes Tom Bonen and Nicky Terpstra. 22.6 k's to go and one final cobbled sector in just 2 kilometers time. It's the Lange Munter and Stein Vondenberg working hard. The only man in this Ethics Quickstep group chasing behind, not really doing any work, is Tom Bonen. Is this finally his day? This is the only real gap on his cobbled palmarès. He's won everything else, many of them multiple times. You can talk about Tour de Flanders, Paris-Roubaix. Oh, and Stuyven's down. That's it for the chase for him. Heartbreak for Jasper Stuyven. And as he gets back on his bike, I'm afraid the day, for now at least in this particular chase, is done. Guts and a will to go for glory. And he's ended up very, very disappointed indeed. He's taken in by Stein Vondenberg. And this was the moment he went down. He lost control of it already before he went into the corner. The mud, the gravel, and the sign did the rest. Remember, it's windy, it's nervy, and the pace is on already. Vondenberg, Stuyven, they know these roads. Vondenberg in particular. approaching that last cobbled section then. De Lange Munter. Avermaet and Wisniewski done a lot of the early work in the race today. Some of them still left, and this is all that's left of the main peloton. Hasn't even rained today, but it's been an aggressive, furious race, certainly in the last 50 kilometers or so. And the fact that Sagan and Van Avermaet and Rowe went out, remember it was Rowe who started everything on the Tyenberg. Bonen choosing to wait this time, despite the fact that all the Ethics Quick-Step guys had the Tyenberg highlighted. Maybe a change of plan, maybe employed to get idiots like me talking about it all afternoon. Greg Van Avermaet, is this to be his day? So many top 5 placings in this race. He gets harshly branded as Mr. Second and third place often. But he's fast enough in this group. Sagan's form unsure at the end of a long race. But it's time for the last few cobbles. Lange Munter taken on by the break. 2.5 Ks, the longest sector of the day. 48 seconds of a gap from a hungry peloton, still hoping, in Ethics Quick-Step's case at least, to put Tom Bonen in with a chance of glory. Terpstra's also there as well. And it's Sagan who's going to distance those who have been hurting all afternoon. Well done to Brechtane, Proficiat. That's been a brilliant ride to stay with them. Even Alexis Goujar is hurting here though. And Sagan putting on the pace. Goujar being dropped. And only those who attacked with Sagan are managing to stay with him. There's Julien Maurice. The man from the initial break, gone. So Sagan lets Benoit do some of the work now. The young Belgian, as Goujar still fighting behind. Wind playing a real factor today too. And well done to Goujar. Looked as though for a minute that he'd gone. But he's fighting with everything he's got to stay going. Burying himself over this period of cobblestones. Alexis Goujar, one of the rides of the day. He's back amongst the leading 5. 47 seconds. No other rider quite yet as able as Peter Sagan to put in that big turn. It was Sagan's acceleration that did for 3 of the 8 riders that were out there. But it is the world champion at the front again. If Tom Bonen can't win today, as the Belgian fans would love, I think that they dearly love to see a World Championship rainbow jersey crossing the line first. Former world champion, the top man in Flanders, just takes on a gel at the back of this group of 4 blue-clad Ethics Quick-Step riders. And it's as we were last year in terms of 3 of the men who are left standing at this time for Ethics Quick-Step.
Alexis! Alexis!
Terpstra and Bonen, those 3 between them managed to mess it up 12 months ago. As Alexis Goujar, he's unable to get the beat on he wants. Lange Munter is done then. Goujar again struggling to hold that wheel. This time Sagan gets the beat on he wants. All the obstacles are out the way. It's 18 kilometers of a ride into Ghent, but the wind is blowing. They've had a
Julien Maurice.
tailwind for that last section. And here's the proof of that. Look at the flags blowing. Ethics Quick-Step now. Can they get something of a chase going? Katusha do not have the riders they want in here. It's not going to be the day, I fear, for Alexander Kristoff. Chavanel.
Ils reverront pas.
Missed it earlier on. I'm afraid that Floris Hertz, Philippe Gilbert and Jeppe Drucker all crashed out. Gilbert getting back on his bike, but as of yet, and that's to our knowledge, not able to make full contact with the group chasing on. Looked to be going well too. This is the head of the race with Alexis Goujat, the only man remaining from the original 12-man break. He's joined by Van Avermaet, Benoot, Sagan and Rowe, who all attacked on the Tyenberg. Tyenberg that came with 57.4 kilometers to go. There are just 7.1 Ks remaining, and you can see from all of the trees rustling in the wind, the clothing that the motorbike outriders are wearing, and the noise that it's pretty windy. A few change of direction still to go. When we get to the final few hundred meters, it's uphill and with the wind in the face. .53 seconds. Are they going to hold on to this advantage? There's enough firepower in this group to do that, but they've all got to be committed. And then when we get to the final few kilometers, there are other factors to take into consideration. In Rowe and Benoot's case, you would think that they wouldn't want to trust their sprint, but we're talking early season at the end of some pretty tough cobbles, some harrowing hills, and a lot of wind. 200 kilometers of racing. All of that is a good leveler. Maurice and Dana are only heading one way, though, and that's backwards. Stiletics quick-step chase. Lotto Soudal have options as well. Let's not forget that if it is brought back, it's not all done and dusted for them. Roulance de Busseret. I'm interested to know if Yellow Wall Ice is in there as well. Two men, Maurice and Dana from the breakaway, reabsorbed. Quick-stop have firepower, pardon me. But how much are they going to sacrifice? Again, Tom Bonen. Here there are 6 Flandrian races on cobbles that hold a top-level rating, really, in the UCI scale. This is the only one that the man from around here has yet to take. He's won Ronde van Vlaanderen 3 times. He's been victorious 5 times on Edri Harelbeke. He's won Gent-Wevelgem on 3 occasions. He's won Scheldeprijs twice. He's also won Dwars door Vlaanderen. He's never won here at Omloop at Nieuwsblad. 13 failed attempts. This is the 14th time he's ridden. Edix Quickstep have a score to settle after a very disappointing cobbles campaign in 2015. At the minute, they are not represented in the front group. 51 seconds with 15 Ks to go. Well, the first denial of turn taking. Alexis Goujat says he doesn't have the energy to come through. Luke Rowe trying to be his persuasive best, let's say. Not afraid to speak his mind, Luke Rowe, in a bunch. Can come across as abrasive at times. Now world champion Peter Sagan is coming to the back of the group. Quick word, and he's other fish to fry. Not too bothered. About having too much of a word with Goujat. There were riders on the right-hand side making their way back to the team buses. They might have to find a B road. Already abandoned early on in the race. It's one of the great features of one-day racing. When your day is done, it's done. It's not all about trying to get to the end in the race and be on the start line again tomorrow. there is a start line tomorrow for much of these riders, but the slate will be wiped clean for Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. Some of the teams making minute changes to their rosters. Rowe this time waiting and making Goujar take his place. Sagan still doing his turns, honouring that World Champions jersey well. He looks lean, he looks mean, he looks very, very fit indeed. There's Ghent. Beautiful hazy spring day. It is very cold, I can tell you. The image is quite deceptive. It's been around 3-4 degrees this afternoon. Temperature getting a little higher, is above 5-6 according to the weather, but with the wind taking the edge off that, I can tell you it feels a lot colder indeed. Lotto and El Jumbo still represented towards the back. I wonder if young Mike Teunissen is there, because we definitely saw Moreno Hofland getting dropped very early on today. Teunissen is quite a fast rider. They also do have Tom van Arsbroek, who's got a fast enough finish as well. Remember, no Sepp van Marken for them today, but they're starting to contribute riders. Whatever happens, it is in their interest to bring things back as well, because they are not represented here in the front group. So Goujar being bullied into taking his turn. Amazing that he's got anything left here. But they've got to be turns worth benefiting from the rest of this group. Otherwise, there's no point in letting him take a turn or making him take a turn. They've got to keep this advantage as high as possible. 52 seconds with 12.4 kilometers to go. It's nicely balanced. Well, if Etixx Quickstep don't pull this back, don't contribute anything else, the sports directors again, I know Wilfred Peters in particular came in for a lot of criticism this time last year. They do have Tom Stales there this year as well, a former winner of this race. Certainly those in red towards the back aren't going to contribute to the chase here. This group is whittling down all the time. A rider from Southeast still here. No other riders from Tinkoff. So it's all down to Peter Sagan for them. Pardon me, no. There's one on the left-hand side, just hiding. If it's Oscar Gatto or Daniele Benati, then they could be in business if disaster happens for the front group. Just over 10 Ks to go. If you're a former winner, Pipo Pozzato fan, you can put your peacock feathers away, because the peacock of Sandrigo is not going to be involved in the finale. He's not in the chase group. Benoot's still in the middle of this group. Whatever happens again, another great ride from him. Reminder, a fifth place finish in the Tour of Flanders, and not by holding on to wheels and being lucky. The Sagan gets ready for a sprint, tightens up those shoes. But Benoot fifth in that debut Tour of Flanders in a neo-pro season. After attacking and honouring the race, he is a rider to watch. Sagan, after tightening the shoes now, just stretches out his back a little, gets ready. Is he going to surprise us all, and is he feeling good enough to attack from distance? I don't think those riding with him would expect that. If riders are going to attack here, you can expect it to be either Benoot, Rowe, or if by some miracle Goujar had some extra superpowers and extra force with him after expending so much energy so far, then he. Because Van Avermaet and Sagan are without doubt the quickest to these riders on paper. Inside 10Ks to go. Still the gap's above 50 seconds. And it's not coming down fast enough for those chasing behind. In the meantime, Rowe still playing politics with Goujar. Edic's quick step can't do that, surely. Trek Factory Racing to have their bodies at the front. BMC and Van Avermaet were well positioned. Sky turned it on when they needed to. They got their leader, their main man, to launch that first attack. And kudos for those following behind for noticing the moment and realising. Sagan, Van Avermaet, Benoot. In Goujar's case, he's been in the break since the very beginning. Well, you can't see it now, but looking out the commentary box window, there is a plethora of people. Plenty of cycling caps on heads. Hands clutching beer, coffee, frites and hot dogs. Belgian flags are around. There are a few Flandrian lions flying too. And eyes fixated on the huge LED giant screen just beyond the finish line. It's a wonderful spring atmosphere. And those on the road are getting ready to perform for them. Sagan taking down a gel, Rowe radioing in back to the team car. Just over 8 kilometers to go. No food left on board now for Peter Sagan. It's all been taken down. Who do we think's going to win? That is the question. In Sagan's case, that would be the headline victory. No World Championship win here since Martens won in 1977 when it was still Omloop het Volk. Sagan came prepared for the cold today. And to be fair, he's been in southern Spain, but he's been up in the cold as well. He's been at altitude in Sierra Nevada, just above the great city of Granada. It's not an easy place to have an altitude camp at this time of year. It's the most southerly of the big ski resorts in Europe, but there's plenty of snow up there. It chose to avoid Mount Teide, as many people go for their altitude camps in the Canary Islands still while the weather's bad in mainland Europe. But even they haven't escaped the snow in the last couple of the weeks. A couple of riders trapped in at the hotel at the top of the mountain there whilst roads were blocked to the national park one day. Sagan's had a very good training camp though by all accounts, and he's certainly looking good here despite not having raced for a month. Haven't seen too much of Luke Rowe yet this season. He's looked brilliant as well today, the Welshman. Greg Van Avermaet's been going great guns without a win though so far. Strong in the Tour of Qatar. Tissa Benoot, good in the Algarve last week. Goujar, is he really going to be a player here? We don't know. If you had to make an educated guess, you would say that he isn't going to interfere with the four big guys who attack from behind. "50 seconds, no closing of the gap behind, and we're down inside the final 7 kilometers now. Well, Sylvain Chavanel in the chase behind. Somebody's got to try something. Perhaps Quick-Step were scared of towing everybody else to the line. But once again, guilty of letting this get out of their hands. Again, pulling it back, there's no guarantee they're going to win, but if they don't pull it back, there's no chance they are. When comes the moment where there's minute let up in pace and the first thought of individual ambitions. When is Benoot going to attack? Is Luke Rowe going to be the first to go as he was on the Tijenberg? Are Van Avermaet and Sagan going to surprise us? So many questions, as of yet, so few answers. Benoot pushes through, not a real attack. This is where the roads start to widen a little. We're heading back to the city. We've left Merelbeke. We're on our way back into Ghent. Approaching the banner that says 5 kilometers to go. Remember, there are race radios this year, so directors sportifs on this second division Europe Tour level do have an immediate impact if they want. They're watching the race on the cars, in the television. There's the famous River Schelde. Lots of Scheldeprijs fame. Also known as Lescaut in French. Scheldeprijs having an alternate name, Grand Prix de Lescaut. Onto the motorway bridge. And in towards the Ghent area. Gouchard still giving a turn, eventually. His only hope would have been to sort of rest up as much as possible, drafting in and getting some sort of energy back for a finale and then an attack. Less than 5Ks to go. Omloop at Nieuwsblad 2016, the 71st edition, has again provided entertainment. Now then, what's happening behind? We haven't seen any images, but the latest time gap has gone down to 32 seconds. 20 seconds, ever so quickly, dropped off. Have Quick-Step turned on the pace? Or is it Sylvain Chavanel and Direct Energie? Well, one thing for certain is that with race radios, 4Ks to go, these guys will know what's happening. 29 seconds now. Was this the plan all along? Quick-Step will know the roads better than anybody else here. They're all local pros. Van Avermaet is not without knowledge, though. He powers on. And a reminder, the last kilometre is uphill. The final 300 metres, pardon me, uphill with a more pronounced gradient and wind against. And we're not talking silly Koppenberg gradients or anything like that. Just an uphill slope. But after 200 Ks of racing, they can be of an impact. Now, look behind, you can see the peloton. They come under the banner. Ghent is in sight, 26 Ks to go. Oh, there's not going to be heartbreakers. That these guys have got to continue riding. Because if it comes down any more, somebody's got to think about attacking if they're to save their own chances. What's Sagan thinking right now? Rowe hangs out at the back. Is this his moment? 3.2 Ks to go. There's the banner for 3Ks, just above you on the screen. Wide exposed roads, and the wind is going to affect you a little more here. A few motorbikes being pulled out of the gap. That's always a worry. Always a worry for the guys in the break, because they know that the gap is coming down. No shots of the peloton, though. We don't know who's controlling or who's pulling this back. A worried look behind there from Luke Rowe. Surely this isn't all going to be in vain. The excitement is building, the noise building outside the commentary box already. We are being thoroughly entertained today. The first race they won as a team, with Juan Antonio Fletcher picking up victory in 2010. And on only one occasion in all the years they've been riding it, they've missed out on the podium. Gap starting to hold again. 21 seconds now. Just over 2 Ks to go. Looking a little better now for these guys. Look behind from Benoot. When's he going to attack? Surely he has to do. He will know the route. He will know the race. Inside the final 2 kilometers of Omloop at Nieuwsblad. Peloton coming through that 2K barrier to go. It's not done and dusted yet. It is not nailed on this. And while that gap remains that, and if Quick-Step are chasing, Tom Bonen, Nicky Terpstra and the rest still remain candidates, if outsiders. No panic though from this group yet. They've done well to remain calm. Approaching the last kilometre. Railway bridge approaching. It's part of the old route that we used to see a few years ago, before we had the finishes in St. Peter's Square. St. Peter's Square turned into a fairground at the moment. And this is the chase. Chase looking on behind. It's just a question of a couple of 100 metres, but they're approaching the last kilometre with an 18-second lead. Last kilometre which skirts uphill, which slopes up to the final 300 metres where the gradient's more pronounced. It's a little twisty, a little turny, a little harder, and with the wind against, if you're tired, could seem like an eternity. Van Avermaet on the right-hand side riding for BMC and Belgium. He's in red and black. Behind him, the world champion, Peter Sagan, hoping to become the first man to win in the rainbow stripes since Freddie Maertens in 1977. In the middle, in the red, you have the rider riding for Lotto Soudal, the Belgian team. That's Tissa Benoot. On the left-hand side, the man who was in the original breakaway, Alexis Goujar, who's putting on the pace right now and driving for in the past 2 editions. Stannard won those both from a sprint. Luke Rowe would have to be very quick to beat Van Avermaet and Peter Sagan here. We're inside the last kilometre. Huge right-hand turn coming up soon. No gap at the minute. There's the railway bridge. Right-hand turn on the right-hand side. Just after we come around. It's Greg Van Avermaet who's going to start it out. So often second, so often third, but Sagan is coming after him in the rainbow jersey too. It's Van Avermaet hanging on at the moment. Van Avermaet going to the line. It's going to be Greg, finally with a win. He's done it so many times of asking. And Greg Van Avermaet, first beating the world champion Peter Sagan to win Omloop at Nieuwsblad 2016. What a race, what a fight. And the man who hit the front foot, who crossed the line victorious. Greg Van Avermaet wins Omloop at Nieuwsblad. Oh, there he is. All of those who poke fun at him, all of those who say he can't do it, sit back, watch and admire Greg Van Avermaet taking a first place in a semi-classic. What a ride, what a day. And after there was bad news for his team further back, several riders crashing out, all the pressure was on Van Avermaet. Second in Flanders this year, the winner of Omloop at Nieuwsblad this year, and Greg Van Avermaet winning on the first cobbled day of the year. So close for Sagan. He's certainly shown great form going into the cobbled races for the rest of the season. Greg Van Avermaet had the form in Qatar, couldn't convert it into a win. He has done here. Tour de France in the last few years. Groups are coming in one by one. CCC Sprandi Polkovica there at the front in orange, not really players at all in the race today. Katusha disappointing with Alexander Kristoff being distanced early. 9 minutes down. Nice to see riders finishing.
Avermaet, enorm gefeliciteerd. De manier waarop je hier taf maakt in die sprint, beschrijf eens.
Ja, het is moeilijk te beschrijven. Ik was niet zeker. Ik was echt moe aan het worden op lat. En ja, Sagan is echt super rap. Dus Ik heb geprobeerd om meer stand te zetten. Ik denk dat ik hem een beetje verrast. En,
Je werd bijna ingesloten net voor de sprint eraan kwam. Wist je dat daar moet ik aan gaan? Dat is het punt dat ik voor mezelf heb uitgemaakt van morgen misschien nog?
Ja, ik wist al dat ik achter de bocht niet lang meer moest wachten. En ja, ik ben gewoon met mijn eigen sterkte uitgegaan en vroeg aangezet. En dat is nog altijd mijn beste methode om een sprint te winnen, denk ik. Gewoon van aangaan en hopen dat er niemand meer overkomt. En dat was het geval.
First victory of the season, all those honorary places, let's forget them and trade them in for this big one.
Yeah, for me it was I'm always there, never really winning that much, and yeah, I think this is the most important race in Belgium so far, so I'm pretty happy with this victory, and yeah, if I can choose one, I would pick directly this one.
Many congratulations, felicitaties, Greg van Avermaet. Peter Sagan, it's a really nice podium, but you don't win. How do you feel about it?
Nah, good. No bad. Yeah, I was again second. But still, for now, I come here in Belgium to compare with another rider. It was a good race. I was in the front. And then, yeah, just Greg van Avermaet was on the front of me. And
were you surprised by the moment he went in the sprint?
No, I did a lot of work before, and yeah, in the end I had less energy, and yeah, it was my first race after 1 month, and I think it was very good.
You're on a build-up towards the Tour of Flanders.
Yeah, it's far away still.